started. So thanks everybody for joining. This is WaveCloud's Wednesday webinar on book reviews, the cornerstone of marketing your self-published book, sorry. I'm Bill Van Orsdel from WaveCloud, and I really appreciate everybody joining today. Before we get started, I want to let everybody know that I'm going to record this for playback later. So if you have to bail out early or if you want to go back and re-review the material, sometime around midnight tonight, I think GoToMeeting is clever enough to send out an automated email to everybody who attended with a link back to the presentation, to the recorded presentation. Now, of course, I am happy to send the slides to anybody that would like them. Just send me an email, bill.vanorsdel@wavecloud.com, and I'm happy to send the slides along. There's at least one slide in here, I think, that's got a couple of pretty complex URLs on it that you might find valuable to have in person. Just a quick check of assumptions. I'm going to assume that you are planning to or you have already self-published your book and that your ebook and print formats are both on the same Amazon sales page. Actually, just about everything we're going to talk about tonight would work for or would be valuable for authors who have published through a traditional publisher, because everybody needs reviews. But I'm going to specifically talk a lot about a lot of things related to self-publishing. And when I say on the same sales page, I mean your print on demand and your ebook format can both be found on the same sales page in Amazon. You just pick between two different formats. Now, just about everything I'm going to talk about tonight applies to Barnes & Noble and Kobo and Amazon and the Google Play Store, and Apple. You know, if you've spent some time out there looking at the Google Play Store, looking at the Apple Store, the Kobo Store, the Barnes & Noble Store, you're going to see that their review systems are not as robust. And in particular, there's no way on those other four systems, unlike Amazon, to find these reviewers and to try and submit your book to them. So mostly what we're going to be talking about is Amazon, but a lot of it's related to other sites as well. Of course, a quick word from our sponsor from WaveCloud. You know, this is not a sales pitch. We've got some how to do it, but mostly this is a what to do presentation. Of course, we are an author services platform, and we're going to be bringing out a new product in a couple of months that we think is pretty exciting, and we're going to add a lot of capabilities to the platform. And we're an ebook store, of course. We've got 1,000, I think there's at least 1,000 self-published, indie-published books in our bookstore right now. We're pretty proud of that. Helping writers become successful authors is our #1 priority. So that's why we do these webinars. We're happy to share whatever information we can with the community. So I always start with the key points. I always start and end with the key points. I know that during presentations like this, it's typical to only pay attention about 30% of the time, and this is one of those times. So I'll start with sort of our 7 recommendations. Reviews are or can be a substitute for trial. I'll talk in a few minutes about the typical consumer purchasing behavior when purchasing a book, and you'll see in there's a step where it's called consideration or trial, where your customer, your reader, is trying to figure out, hey, should I read this book or not? Sometimes they'll pick it up if they're in a bookstore. They'll read a few pages. If they're relatively sophisticated, they'll click on Look Inside and open a few pages on the Amazon store. But your reviews, your star rating, and the number that you have can be a substitute for that actual pickup and reading of the book. Reviews, that is getting at least a dozen or 2 dozen, should come before any direct response advertising that you do. So if you're trying to drive traffic to your Amazon sales page, either with book sales widgets or mentions in a signature, I wouldn't spend any money doing that until you had a dozen or 2 reviews, and I'll talk a bit more about that. Reviews can drive discoverability. We've got some pretty powerful anecdotal stories that have come to us that say at about 100 reviews, you're going to start getting rotated into the also bought category. So if you're not familiar with Amazon, you should get familiar with them, because that's where the most of your online book sales will come from. And you know that when you're looking at a book detail page, a book sales page, that partway down the page is there sort of the beauty pageant bar, if you will, that says customers that looked at this book also bought these other books. After you get to about 100 reviews, your book can start showing up on other books pages in that also bought ribbon. Review sourcing requires timing and strategy. Not all reviewers are created equal. Not all reviewers that you're going to go after come at this with the same attitude towards your book and toward authors in general. So you need to sort of know about that and think about that as you develop your plan to find them and approach them. There are a lot of sources. Probably the most valuable slide, and the one everyone wants me to jump to right away, is where do I find reviewers? And I've got 6 or 7, 8 different sources for you to consider, and I'll show you how to use them. But then once you've compiled that list of reviewers, you're going to want to sort of critically take a look at each one of them. This is very time-consuming, but very important. Make sure that they're giving positive reviews to books, positive reviews to books like yours, and take a close look at each reviewer before you actually ever approach them and ask them if they would like to review your book. And then, of course, I've also got just a couple of basic common sense etiquette rules before you approach a reviewer. Know how to approach a reviewer, know what you're doing, know what you're asking for. And I'm just going to actually take a moment and make sure that, because this has happened to me before, let's make sure, can anyone still hear me? If you throw a quick question or a chat box up, I want to make sure that I haven't been talking to myself for the past 5 minutes. Okay, great. Then, Lori, thank you so much. That always makes me nervous because I've done it before. Okay, so I talked before about consumer buyer behavior. And, of course, it all starts with awareness. So someone becomes aware of your book, either through positive word of mouth, or they saw a banner or an ad, or they read a blog article, or they read a review of it on a blog somewhere, or in a newspaper, as an example. And then that proceeds to, okay, so now I've heard of this book, I've heard of this author. Hey, I'm kind of interested. That sounds like an interesting story. Either they read your book description that has your benefit promise and your unique value proposition, if you're nonfiction, or they read your book description and you've got a great log line, a great hook, and now they're actually interested in reading your book. Well, then they get to that point where they want to give your book a try. And so some authors have great sampling strategies, especially series authors. They'll often give away the first book. And, of course, Amazon has the look inside function, which can serve as a trial function. But there are plenty of Amazon shoppers that don't know what that does, or they know what it does, and they're very frustrated because when they click on that button, they only get the first few pages of the book. Reviews serve as a substitute for trial. So reviews are that element in your marketing program that let authors know that, let readers know that this book has some value and other people found it valuable and enjoyed it. I call it social proof. It's sort of the someone else liked this, so I'll probably like it too. It's important to have social proof. And why does this really matter? Why is this important? Because you want to convert every single visit to your Amazon.com sales page into book purchases. And there's an obvious reason, which is every time you sell a book, that's good for you. And then there's the sort of the unobvious reason. Every bounce you get from your page, so someone comes to your page and they bounce away from it without buying your book, that costs you money, either directly or indirectly. It might cost you money directly because you paid to send traffic to that Amazon page. You built this great author anchor website, your own website, and on it you have a widget that points to your book. And so effectively, by maintaining that website, you're paying to send traffic to Amazon. You might have paid for a blog tour where you got your book reviewed and mentioned and linked on a number of reviewer blogs out there. You probably paid for that. But there's also an indirect cost, and that's because Amazon promotes books that convert, not books that bounce. If you're familiar with the way the Google ad system works, it's a little bit similar in that every time there's a successful ad clicked on in the Google search page, Google gives that ad a higher rank for relevance and will show it more often. Well, the Amazon model is not exactly the same, but it's similar. As you begin to sell more books, Amazon notices that sending people to your book sales page generates more sales for them. Of course, also for you, but they really care about them. So the more that you can get, the more conversions you can get on your book sales page, the more Amazon will start to take notice of your page and then eventually start to slot you into the also bought category. As well, there's an important reason to get reviews, and this one's not very well known, and we don't have good stats around it, but John Fine, who's I think he's the VP, might be the SVP of Publisher Relations for Amazon, great guy. I've seen him, you may have seen him at several conferences. I was on a panel with him a couple of months ago when we were talking about sales rank, and he said, I want everybody in the audience to understand that sales rank is a function not only of your sales and your sales velocity and your downloads and your KDP borrows, but it's also influenced by your reviews. So the more reviews you get, the higher your sales rank. So sales rank is actually more of a buzz meter in Amazon than anything else, and that buzz meter can be influenced by the number of reviews that you're getting. So a pretty powerful reason to go out and get good reviews for your book and get lots of them. So I always, when I'm talking to authors and their book's finally up, they've gone through all the steps, they've got their ebook up, they've got their print-on-demand book up, and they're ready to spend their first $1,000 marketing, and they want to know, what should I spend it on? And I'll immediately pull up their Amazon page and I'll look for their social proof, and they have none. And so I tell them, well, I don't actually want you to spend any money on marketing right now. No money driving, no money on direct response advertising. Don't buy BookBub. Don't do any of that stuff until you've actually finished your book sales page. And when I say finished, I mean that you've actually got some reviews up there as well. I tell all the authors I work with that you want a minimum of 12 reviews, and that you can probably stop trying after you have a couple of dozen. After you got about 22, 23, 24 reviews, if you want, you can sort of stop trying to get more. Now, you may be an overachiever and you want to go after 100, and then at that point you'll start to experience the Amazon discoverability bounce, where you'll get into the also bought list. And of course, you can spend that first $1,000 on other marketing if you want to improve your book sales, if you want to improve your author anchor site. There are a couple other marketing programs that you can do, but just be careful. Try not to spend money driving traffic over to your Amazon page until you've got the reviews necessary to help people who come to your page convert and actually buy. And I would ask all of the authors that I talk to, when you are, and I know there's a stage in your marketing prep when you're doing this research on your browse paths or your genre selection, where you're figuring out, okay, I want my book in the Kindle store, Kindle ebook store. I want it in the science fiction and fantasy, science fiction, alien first contact genre. All right, so I've drilled all the way down. I've got a browse path that goes all the way down to alien first contact. And when I look at alien first contact and I look at the top 100 books in Alien First Contact, the top 100 paid books, or even the top 100 free books, I always go and jump and look immediately at books number 99 and 100, because I want to know how many reviews they have. And I guarantee you almost always they will have more than at least a dozen reviews. Depends on how big the genre is, but if you want to get yourself up into the top 100 of your genre, you're definitely going to need reviews. Let's talk about strategy and timing for reviews. I think at some point Amazon will make available the pre-order function for self-published authors. They haven't yet. I'm hopeful that they will someday. But until they do, I wouldn't start asking for any reviews, either from Amazon semi-pro reviewers or even from family and friends. I wouldn't ask for any reviews until your book sales page is finished. And when I say finished, of course, I mean that you've got at least a dozen reviews out there, maybe 2 dozen. So once you, I'm sorry, when I say finished, I mean, of course, you won't have reviews yet. So your book will be up. So now you've got a good-looking book cover that does all the things your book cover is supposed to do for fiction or nonfiction books. You've got a very compelling book description. All the rest of your metadata is done. You've got a good pricing. Then you start asking people for book reviews. And why wait until then? Because when you ask for a book review, generally book reviewers, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to want to go look at your Amazon page. They want to see, are there already other reviews up there? How many are there? What's the trend of those reviews? And by the way, does this book look interesting? Does it look like it's a professionally produced book? So don't start asking for reviews until you've got your book up on Amazon and you've got a good professional-looking finished book sales page. Strategy-wise, There is a culture. I said attitude in this morning's presentation, but I think culture is the better word for it. There is a very specific sort of general culture amongst the Amazon top 1,000, top 10,000 reviewers out there. Now you have to think about who are these people that have written enough reviews in enough detail and put enough into it that they've gotten enough upvotes that they find themselves in the top 100, top 1,000, top 5,000, top 10,000 reviewer category in Amazon. And the culture is a little bit like this. You know, we are sort of the new gatekeepers. We are professionals. We know what we're doing. We don't just write blah reviews. We write real reviews. And we're important. And we don't get paid for it, but we are absolutely important. So, you know, my strategy, my recommendation is go after those finicky, attitude-laden, but very valuable reviewers first. And we'll talk about, you know, creating a giant list of reviewers you want to go after. You probably need 200 or 300 at least. But definitely put at the top of those lists your most highly ranked Amazon reviewers first. And then, of course, when you do start asking for reviews, always ask. Go ahead and ask for it to be posted on Amazon, Goodreads, and Barnes & Noble. Most reviewers will probably do Amazon and Goodreads without batting an eye, and you can probably get some to put it up on Barnes & Noble for you as well. And then, of course, timing. You know, not only do you want to ask the people who have the sort of the most, who are the most valuable, but also might be the most finicky, but also take a look at what's the lead time. And you can typically get a feel for lead times when you go to a reviewer's webpage, and they'll tell you, look, it takes me 2 or 3 weeks, it takes me 2 or 3 months. So, you know, make sure you sort of time out the reviewers with the longest runway, asking them to go first. And definitely place your family and friends at the end of the queue. And the reason's pretty simple. That if you get, let's say you go to your friends and your family, and they happen to actually agree to put up a review. A lot will say they will, but then they won't. But let's say you get five-star reviews up there, and you know, one of them says, "Hey, you know, I've known Bill for 35 years, and you know, I remember his first crayon drawings of spaceships, and I don't really usually read science fiction, but this book is great, and I think you'll really enjoy it too." And you know, clearly, when you go see that review and it's a 5-star review, that's from my mom. And so, when you get 4 or 5 of those, and one of your semi-pro Amazon reviewers sees that you've got a bunch of shills out there, they might, just to teach you a lesson, pan your book. Not because they didn't like it, but because that's part of the culture. So put your friends and family at the end of the queue. Let your Amazon Pro reviewers take a swing at your book first. All right, sources for reviews. We're going to go through each one of these piece by piece and talk about them in detail. And if you've got any questions, or you want me to slow down or speed up or go back over something, you are welcome to throw me a question up in the chat. I'll acknowledge you. I'll read it out loud, and I'll address it immediately. But let's talk about Amazon reviewers. So when I talk about Amazon reviewers, I mean the people that are reviewing books like yours, right? So, you know, if you're a genre fiction writer or just a writer in general, you're probably pretty well read. You know, most authors are, right? They read a lot in their genre. And so what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go find a dozen books that you really like, that you think are a lot like yours, either in voice or in plot style or in point of view or in setting, or certainly they're in your browse path. Go find a dozen books at least and know the authors and the titles, and we'll talk about a tool you can use later, but go drill down and look at all of their reviewers. Look at them one by one. And so what you'll see when you're in the Amazon store is that you can actually, if they have a profile, you can actually drill on a reviewer's name, and you can see at a glance all of the products, and in many cases reviewers will review products, not just books, all of the products that they've reviewed, all of the books that they reviewed. You can see all of the ratings that they gave to all of those books. And in some of those profiles, that reviewer will have left an email address and or a web address, a web page address. And the web page address is actually very valuable because it allows you to go to typically their blog site, where often they'll have a review policy that you can read, and in that review policy you might find out that they're too busy, they're not taking any more books, or they only take traditionally published books, or yes, they do take self-published books, but they only want it in EPUB format, or they only want it in print format, and it takes them 3 months, or it takes them 3 weeks, or typically takes them 3 days to complete a review. So as you look at the books that are like yours, that you like, by the way, and that hopefully you've read, so you can compare the reviewer's opinion to your opinion and get a feel for how they review, you're collecting a lot of information about this reviewer. You're sort of getting to know them before you approach them. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of work, but you need to do this work. You need to find out who these reviewers are, find out if they'd be favorable to your cause before you approach them. Find out if they're even accepting books like yours before you approach them. And you're going to say, wow, that's pretty tedious, and it is tedious, and this is not something that you're going to do in an hour. You're not going to come up with a list of 200 or 300 reviewers and get to know all of them in an hour or two. This might be a project for a weekend or two. But the great thing about this project is you don't actually have to do this. You can have a friend or a family member do it for you. There are a couple of services you can pay to help you get a start on it. So this doesn't actually have to take away from your writing time, but it's very valuable to get yourself a list of 200 or 300 reviewers to start with that you can approach. Because, by the way, if you're going to write more books in this genre, you can reuse that list. So this research you're doing is sort of a one-time activity. Yes, you're going to put a lot of digging into it to find out the information, but putting together a list of Amazon top 1,000, top 10,000 reviewers will be very valuable to you as an author. Now, one thing I want to point out is those top 100, those top 1,000 reviewers at Amazon, you have to remember that they are getting flooded by traditional publishers, by manufacturers of all kinds that make all kinds of products. Because if you're a top 1,000, top 500, top 10 reviewer on Amazon, everybody wants your review, and they're just sending you stuff left and right. So just know that, and know that if you get rejected by them, it's not personal, it's not you, and in fact, many of those top 1,000 probably won't even do indie books. So there are a lot of Amazon reviews. I'm going to talk a little bit later about 2 tools that you can use. One's called Book Review Broker. Your mileage may vary. We've had some authors not have very good experience with them. Another one that we really like is Author Marketing Club, and I'll talk about the Author Marketing Club Review Grabber tool in a moment. Also, now let's talk about the next one on this, book bloggers. So this is pretty easy, right? If you go if you go into Google and you type in Frank Herbert Dune review, right? Frank Herbert wrote Dune. It's a classic science fiction book, and you want to find all of the bloggers that have reviewed Dune because you wrote a space opera just like Dune that's huge in scope and spans the universe and spans millennia, and you'd like to find reviewers that reviewed Dune and liked Dune. That's one way to do it. There's also a great website out there. I don't have it on here. It's called blognation.com. So blognation.com has a directory of services, and one of the services will list for you book review websites. And I think they'll actually do it by genre. So check out blognation.com. If you don't want to do that work, if you don't want to actually go and hunt down all of those blog reviews yourselves and then check out their review policies and then add them to your list and then submit them when it's appropriate, an email asking them if they can review your book, there are also firms out there that will do paid blog tours. And there's all kinds of packages. There's the $35 package. There's the $250 package where essentially coordinators on your behalf will set up a month-long or a week-long blog tour for you that can help you begin to generate some awareness and some reviews for your book. I've got 2 listed on here that they get pretty good reviews on the web: enchantedbookpromotions.com, bewitchingbooktours.blogspot.com. But if you just go and Google science fiction book blog tour or romance book blog tour, Google can throw up all kinds of suggestions for you for companies that will organize blog tours for you. The fourth item on the list, and if you haven't done it already, you should probably get engaged in the Goodreads site. Of course, Amazon now owns Goodreads. I would urge caution if you haven't already started to engage in the Goodreads community. Make sure that you understand the proper etiquette for how authors engage at Goodreads. It's easy to make mistakes and to violate some social norms there, and then get mobbed. To get an angry mob after you at Goodreads, which does nothing good for you as an author. But Goodreads is a very powerful site. It has a lot of great tools. It's got giveaway tools. One of the things they have is called a review group. And this is a group that's specifically dedicated to putting together reciprocal reviews of self-published books. And I've got the URL on here, goodreads.com/group/show 78683. That is absolutely worth checking out. Goodreads can be a very powerful tool to find reviews. Often Goodreads reviewers they'll post a review primarily on Goodreads and then secondarily on Amazon. There's also another good site out there called theindyReview.com. So the indyreview.com/indie-reviewers, you could go there right now and find a list of 330 reviewers. I say this says 330 reviews. That should be 330 reviewers listed. So here's 330 bloggers or book reviewers that have gone to the indyreview.com and said, yes, I accept books in the science fiction and fantasy genre, or I accept books in the erotica and the romance genre, or I accept books in the whatever genre. And you can actually search. You can type in science fiction or cyberpunk or whatever you want to type in, and it'll give you a list of all of the you can type in science fiction right now. It'll give you a list of 49 different book blog reviewers that review science fiction books. Now, again, you're not contacting them yet. You're building your list, because on your list, for every single name on your list, you're going to want to go and look at what's their review policy. Do they even take self-published authors? Are they still taking books? What books have they reviewed? Are any of those books like the one that you've written in your genre, and how did they like them? So the indyreview.com is another great source for reviewers. I always remind my authors that you should be using the back of your book as a source for generating reviews. Now, of course, I'm sure that if you are an Amazon customer and you've been reading ebooks in the past couple of weeks or couple of months, you've noticed a new feature in the Amazon Reader software, that when you get to the last sentence in a book in your Amazon Reader, it pops open the opportunity for you to give it a 1 to 5 star rating. Not necessarily a review, but right there you can give the book a star rating. So what Amazon has done is they have uncoupled the star rating from the written review, which I think is a good idea. Many more people will give star ratings than will actually go to the effort to write a review. So automatically now, every book that people buy on Amazon is probably going to start getting a lot more star ratings. You still want written reviews, because that's part of the true social proof. So right after the last sentence of your book, on the next page, you want to have a nice little note inside the back of your book that says, hey, thank you very much for reading my book. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, I would encourage you to go to Amazon and please leave, even if it's just a short review, any review will help other readers discover books that they might love. I would be humbled if you would write a review for me. Something in your own words at the back of your book that says, hey, while I've got your attention, while you're on the high of finishing my book, please give me a review. And of course, you actually have to do that twice. You have to put the blank request for the review in the back of your book, and you have to post your book up to Amazon. Then, after you actually have the Amazon URL for your book, you have to go back into your book and put that link at the end of your request. So now when people are in the book and they're on a tablet, all they have to do is click on the link in the back of their book, and it'll take them right to your book page where they could leave a review. Of course, then once you put that link in your book, you've got to repost it to Amazon so that the version with the link is actually up. And, of course, I tell all my authors, not only do you want to have that request for review in the back of that book, but you also want to have a notice of what's the next book in the series with a link, or what are the previous books in the series. You also want to have a link to your Author Anchor website so that they can go and sign up for your email notification of when your next book is available. So definitely be using the back of your book to help you generate more written reviews. Also, you probably have or you're building a social media platform, and it could be Twitter, it could be Pinterest, it could be Facebook, it could be LinkedIn, depending on whether we're talking about fiction or nonfiction or both. And the point is, you've got some followers, you've got friends and family out there. You should definitely look upon them as a source not of sales, but of reviews, of positive word of mouth. So definitely go to your social media platforms as and like I tell most authors, you actually want to engage in your social media platform way before your book is done. You actually want to, here's a super easy way to engage your social media platform. When you're at that stage where you're creating your book cover, so this is before your Amazon sales page is ever done, before you've ever uploaded a book, at some point your book cover artist probably gives you back 3, 4, 5, 6 composites, so different examples for you to choose from. And you're not certain which one might be the best. Well, there's some tools out there that you can post those pictures, and you can probably just do it to create a survey on Facebook if you want. Post those pictures and ask your social media platform if you if you were a science fiction reader, if you were a romance reader, if you were looking for a book on weight loss, if you were looking for a book on speaking in public with confidence, which of these 3 covers would be most attractive to you and make you most interested in buying my book? And get them to vote. So now you've started to engage your social media platform in the success of your book. Then you go back to them after your book is ready and you say, hey, I am trying to build reviews for my book. I would be happy to send you a copy if you'd be willing to write a review for my book. Send you a copy for free. And your social media platform can be a great source of reviews for your book. Of course, there's always friends and family, and I've got them down here at the back of the list for the reason I said earlier. You want to be careful. If they may ask you how you want them to review it. They don't all have to give 5-star ratings. That always looks fishy when all you have is 5-star ratings, especially if it's your first 5 reviews. But friends and family are a great source for reviews, and you shouldn't overlook them. But also, you should just know, especially if you're a first-time author, what a lot of authors experience is a lot of enthusiasm from friends and family, but only a few actual reviews. So just know that if that happens to you, you're not alone. Additionally, especially for nonfiction books, you've got professional connections out there. You've got people that do what you do for a living, who you might even ask for advice, your beta readers, your alpha readers, the people in your industry. Go ask them to review your book. They'll probably be flattered, first of all. And if they had input to the book, they're probably going to give it a very favorable review. The very best nonfiction reviews you can get are the ones that validate your benefit promise. The review that says, yes, I read Bill's book, and I lost 40 pounds on the soup diet, and I am a new man, and I can't thank Bill enough. Thank you, Bill. Right? If you can get some reviews out there that validate your benefit promise from your users, from your target audience, that's even better than simple peer reviews. So I want to really drill into Amazon reviewers. How do you get a hold of those people? It's hard. It's a lot of work. Are there any tools out there to make it easier? And the answer is yes. There's one out there that I like a lot. Now, the Author Marketing Club, that's the AMC tool, authormarketingclub.com. We're not affiliated with them. They're not us. They don't even know who we are, I'm sure. But I really like what they do for authors, and I recommend them. If for nothing else, the $105 annual prepaid membership at Author Marketing Club is probably worth it for the Review Grabber tool. And they've got a great little online tutorial for it. It's super easy to use. As I mentioned before, find 10 books in your genre that you've read. Hopefully you've read them. If not, just go to the top 100 right now that are out there and pick the ones that look like they're the most like your book, and know the author title of each of those books, and go to the AMC Review Grabber tool and enter each one of those books and go find all the reviewers. And what this tool does, it's outstanding. It allows you to enter the title of a book, or to enter the author and title of the book, or just enter keywords like, how do I lose weight, or How do I fix my carburetor? Or how do I change a flat tire? Right? It allows you to enter keywords, and the Review Grabber tool goes out to Amazon with those keywords and either finds those authors' books or finds that book, and it actually brings back the selection of books, and it allows you to go get the reviewers for each one of those books. So you just click a button and a little wheel spins, and it goes out and it looks at the Amazon book sales page for Frank Herbert's Dune, and it finds the 500 people that have written a review. And it looks at each one of their profiles, and it brings back their reviewer ranking. So, are they in the top 100, top 1,000, top 10,000? It brings back their email address if they put one on their profile. It brings back their web address if they put a URL in their profile. It tells you how many upvotes they have. In other words, how popular are they? So it is a great tool to help you very quickly, with not a lot of hunting and pecking through the Amazon store, go get all of the reviewers that are actually addressable. That is, these are the reviewers in the Amazon store that have in their profile said, yes, it's okay if you contact me. Here's my email address. Here's my web address. So you don't have to go drill into each one yourself. It gives you all of this information, and it actually lets you export it into an Excel template. How easy is that? So now, and the Excel template's live, it's got links in it. So now you've got an Excel template, you've got an Excel file with links in it. You can click, and it'll take you right back to the Amazon reviewer page, so you can see all the things they've reviewed. You can go to their website. It is a great tool. For $105, it'll save you hours and hours and hours of time. Plus, they got a lot of other great benefits. I can't recommend it enough. It's the only tool that I know of out there. I'm actually very envious of it. If I had my way, WaveCloud would build one of these as fast as we could. But until we do, I think this AMC tool, this Review Grabber tool at Author Marketing Club is absolutely a fantastic tool to use. And unfortunately, I know if you're not an Author Marketing Club member already, you can't use it as a trial member. It's not one of the trial pieces available, but it is a great tool if you're looking for reviewers and you want to grab them and grab a list of them. I mentioned before that, as you create a list of reviewers, you're going to want to go and review them. And let's just sort of talk about that for a second. So you don't just want book reviewers. I mean, if you're going to go to the trouble to do all this research and create a list of say 300 of them that you'll contact, and maybe 10% of them will say, sure, I'll review your book, and you send out the copies and maybe 15 actually do review your book. You want to make sure that the people out there have reviewed books in your genre, like yours, and gave them good ratings. So, you don't want a troll reviewer, and you won't know that until you read some of their reviews and read their review policy and get a sense for their personality on their book blog. You have to make sure that those reviewers that you're targeting are actually accepting books for review. And you can do that usually by asking them, by checking their review policy on their book blog. Most of these reviewers are upfront, and they're very current. They keep their blogs current with whether they're accepting books or not. And if they are accepting books, you have to make sure they're accepting self-published books. Some only want traditionally published books. Some are, I suppose you could use the word spoiled. If you're I bet if you're a top 1,000 reviewer on Amazon, your mailbox is just stuffed full of books and other gadgets and stuff that are just sent to you constantly. So absolutely know that there's competition for the book reviewer's attention. And also make sure that the people you're reviewing, fall somewhere in that list of top 10,000 or top 20,000. You want to make sure that they have a lot of these reviews, my review was helpful votes. And that's, by the way, how you get into the top rankings of Amazon. Of course, if you don't like Author Marketing Club, there is another service out there. I'm going to give you a caveat emptor, buyer beware. Book Review Broker is out there. We've referred a few authors to it with some mixed results, frankly. But they have it's not an automated tool. You tell them your genre and tell them how many you want, and they'll quote you a price, and they'll give you the names to contact them. Although there's no guarantees that you're going to get reviews. So they charge on a per name basis, and you're not paying for a review, but you're paying for access to the names. Essentially, bookreviewbroker.com is doing the research that you would do for yourself at Author Marketing Club. Okay, let's just, we're getting toward the end here. Let's talk about review request etiquette. So make sure that your book that you offer your book up in the reviewer's preferred format. Some want an Emobi, some want an EPUB, PDF. Some people will want a printed book. They'll absolutely want your print-on-demand version. For your ebooks, you can consider a couponing strategy. I know that Smashwords has got a pretty good, if you happen to be distributing with Smashwords, they've got a pretty good couponing facility built in. But it's also easy to simply send a PDF, a EPUB, or a Mobi of your book by email once you have those files back from your converter. And of course, I assume that you're using a converter that will give you back the files. That's pretty important as a self-published author. You need to, since you're doing this all on a work-for-hire basis, whoever you're using should be giving you back all of your files. But just make sure you send it to them in their preferred format. And of course, your book is free, right? When you send your book to them, they're not going to pay for it, even if it's a print version. And yes, that means that you're going to be investing some money probably in print versions and the shipping of them. But that's just part of the business of publishing your own books. You'll notice in Amazon, especially for ebooks, on the top right-hand corner of the book sales page, there's the "Give this book as a gift" function. Generally, you probably don't want to give your book as a gift. One of the reasons you might want to give it as a gift, and I thought this was true until I got a confirmation of it a couple of days ago. I used to tell all my authors, give your books out as gifts to your reviewers, and then it'll show up as though they purchased it, and that's actually not true. So don't gift your book using the Amazon function. Of course, you're giving your book to them for free when you give it to them, but don't do it through Amazon. It doesn't do anything for your sales. It just costs money. Of course, it goes without saying you're asking the reviewer for an honest review, and you should expect to get back an honest review. And there are a lot of templates out there for the nice way to ask reviewers if they would consider reviewing your book. And there are many reviewers that'll say in their review policy, hey, I need to know your genre, give me your link to your Amazon page, and just give me your first chapter, or give me something to get me interested in potentially reading your book. When you ask for a review, don't be afraid to ask for a cross-posting of it on Amazon and Goodreads and Barnes & Noble. And if anyone asks for payment, I think the best thing to do is just sort of run away politely. You don't want to pay for reviews, and legitimate reviewers are not going to ask you for payment. And so, absolutely, you need to recognize that the reviewer is, in return for reviewing your book, they're investing their time. So I'm always grateful to reviewers when they review books for our authors. And then, I know this is going to sound odd, but if you send somebody a paperback version of your book and they review it, or they may not even review it, maybe they read it and they didn't have anything nice to say and they didn't want to write a review and didn't want to say that to you, or maybe they're just running a scam themselves so they can sell more books on eBay, expect your POD book, the ones you send out as review copies, to show up as a used book. It's absolutely, it happens all the time. A lot of authors get upset and befuddled by it. They're like, how can my book be on sale as a used book already, and I just put it up on Amazon? Well, that's how it happens. I've talked to some authors who said, well, I stopped that from happening by signing a nice note to the reviewer inside the book. Dear John, thank you very much for agreeing to review my book, and then I sign my name on it, and then they can't sell it on Amazon. Well, those books usually show up on Amazon as, author signed. So that's kind of that's funny as well. All right, so now we're back where we began. We've sort of come full circle, and I want to go over the final recommendations. They're what we started with. Reviews are a substitute for the trial process of consumer buying behavior. That point where you get to the, I'm aware, I'm interested, I'd like to take a little sample, they are a substitute for that sampling behavior. They are the social proof that other people already liked my book, liked this book, so I might like it too. Definitely, before you start spending money on marketing, especially direct response marketing, focus on getting reviews for your book. I wouldn't do any marketing until you have at least 12 reviews, and you can stop it when you get to roughly 24 reviews. Also know that when you get to 100 reviews, your book's going to start to pop. It's going to get into the also bought category, the also bought listings, and I think if you look in the top 100 books in your genre, you'll notice that many of them, especially in the top 10, have more than 100 reviews, and that's part of how you climb into the top 100 on Amazon. As you build your list of 200 or 300 potential reviewers of your book, think about ordering that list to put your Amazon semi-pro reviewers at the top, your friends and family at the bottom. Make sure you think critically about the potential culture out there of Amazon semi-pro reviewers in the way that you order your review requests. There are a lot of sources out there. We went over about 8 of them. The one that wasn't on this list, again, I'll repeat it, blognation.com, a great place to get listings of book review blogs, and there's lots of other options out there. I really like the Amazon Review Grabber tool. I think it's a fantastic way to have someone do the hard work of drilling and clicking around the Amazon site for you. And remember, after you assemble your list, before you've contacted anyone, go out and check that reviewer out. See what kind of reviewer they are, what books they're really reviewing, and what kind of critic they are. There's nothing wrong with pitching your book to the softball reviewers to get yourself good reviews. That's totally fine. You shouldn't think 2 seconds about doing that. And of course, when you're requesting those reviews, follow some basic etiquette rules. Ask for an honest review. Don't pay for reviews, and offer your book for free in their preferred format. So that's all of the slides, all of that I have tonight about book reviews. I hope that you found this valuable. I'm happy to take any questions. If you want to throw some questions up in the questions box, I would be happy to address them. I'll read them out loud, and I'll let everybody know what I think the answer might be if I know an answer. So Wayne asks, are tools like AMC useful for finding reviewers of literary fiction? I ask because my novel is in that category, which by definition is a sort of category for books without a category. In general, I'm finding that a lot of marketing advice, such as get to know your audience, is not really useful for this category. So Wayne, here's what I would say about literary fiction. And I'll sort of answer it like this. There is a... So I talked before about the browse paths in Amazon. And Robert, I see your question. I'll take your question next. Thank you. So Wayne, there's this concept called browse paths in Amazon. And it's the browse path that sort of looks like this as you begin to drill down in the genres. So books, fiction, literary fiction, books, romance, Regency romance. So as you drill down into these browse paths, Amazon, with the help of authors, have categorized the books and essentially put a bookshelf, all of these unique bookshelves up in their store. So what you need to do, Wayne, is you need to go find what is the browse path or two where you are expecting to find your book, because you have to make this decision before you upload your book. You don't want Amazon to make it for you. You have to tell Amazon, where does my book go in your bookstore? So you put your book into those shelves, and when you're doing that research, go look at the books that are in the Kindle store, Kindle ebooks, fiction, literary fiction browse path, if that browse path exists, and find the books that are like yours. So it's not necessarily a category. It's that I want to find the people that reviewed books like mine. So I've got a cancer survivor story, or I've got a weight loss story, or I've got a hero-based fantasy story. Find those books and use a tool like the AMC Grabber to specifically target those books and find all the reviewers of those books, and then go do your research on each one of those reviewers. I'm pretty confident that you should be able to find reviewers who like to review literary fiction. There are plenty of reviewers out there that say, I'm into all genres, or I like literary fiction. I'm confident that you can find some. Robert Stetson's got a question. It says, received a 1-star review. I have not read the book and never will. This book is a cheap ripoff of another book. Amazon refuses to remove stupid reviews. This book fell from 85% of my sales to 7% of my sales immediately. After 2 months and emails from others, they took it down along with my 5-star reviews. The damage was done. How-to book competitors trash your how-to book. What do? I do not respond to them. So Robert, I think your first instinct's right. I did not respond to them. Absolutely. I think that there are sort of two things to do here. Is to overwhelm those few reviews with more positive reviews. And I don't know if I would say this on the record, but off the record, I would say that each review has underneath it the ability to tag a review as helpful or not. And you, of course, get one vote for all of the reviews on your book, but I'm sure you have plenty of friends and family who might have Amazon accounts who could also vote however they felt about such a review. So, downvoting reviews gets them thrown down to the bottom of the list, and no one gets to see them. If you've got more than 5 reviews, you typically want to generate a campaign that upvotes the most helpful reviews, the ones that you think are most helpful, to the top of your list. And so I would counteract that problem that you described, Robert, with more reviews, and generally positive ones, especially if you had 5-star reviews, and a campaign of upvoting or downvoting reviews. Dylan asks, how or where do we access the recorded version of this webinar? Dylan, at about midnight tonight, and I'm not certain what time zone that'll be, an automated email is going to go out saying thank you very much for attending, and in that will be a link to the recorded version of this webinar. And of course, if you'd like, you can send me a direct email to bill.vanoors@wavecloud.com, and I would be happy to send you the slides as well. And Bobby says, thanks for the learning tools. I have a meeting with one of your colleagues tomorrow. Fantastic. And Bobby, I'm going to email you after this webinar. I got some information for you I think you'll find helpful. If there are any other questions, throw them up there now. Otherwise, thank you everyone for attending. I really appreciate it. And I hope that you found this helpful tonight. Thank you, everyone.